Timeline trouble Wade. Wilson's reality is falling apart. The air crackled, energy surged. Wade Wilson, the merc with a mouth, felt a familiar lurch in his stomach. Time travel. Never pleasant, always messy. But this time, it was different. This wasn't just another jaunt through the time stream. This was about survival. His survival. His timeline, the very fabric of his reality, was unraveling. Like a threadbare tapestry, the edges were fraying, threatening to consume everything he knew. And he, the self-proclaimed regenerating degenerate, was powerless to stop it. Desperation clawed at him, a sensation far more unsettling than any physical pain. He had faced down countless villains, laughed in the face of death more times than he could count. But this was a threat unlike any other. This was the end of everything. Unless he found a way to fix it. But how do you patch up a reality on the brink of collapse? The answer, it seemed, lay in a place he never thought he'd visit again. A place called Earth 616. A shift in reality. Wade travels to a new world, seeking a fresh start. The time travel device, cobbled together from stolen cable tech, hummed with unstable energy. It was a one-way ticket, a gamble with fate itself. But Wade had always been a gambler. He punched in the coordinates, a string of numbers that held the key to his salvation or his doom. With a blinding flash and a gut-wrenching lurch, he was gone. Ripped from his crumbling reality and deposited onto the pristine streets of Earth 616. The air felt different here, cleaner, sharper. Even the sunlight seemed to sparkle with an unfamiliar intensity. He took a deep breath, the scent of garbage and stale pizza reminding him that even in a different dimension, some things never changed. He was a stranger in a strange land, a time traveler on borrowed time. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of hope. This world, this reality, was his best shot at survival. He just needed to figure out how to fit in. Easier said than done when you're wearing a skin-tight red suit and carrying enough weaponry to make a small army blush. Rejected hero. The Avengers turned down Deadpool's offer to join their ranks. He figured what better way to integrate into a new reality than to join its premier superhero team, the Avengers, Earth 616's finest. He could practically picture it now. Deadpool standing shoulder to shoulder with Captain America, Thor, Iron Man. The possibilities were endless and hilarious. So, with his usual blend of bravado and insanity, Wade tracked them down. He even baked a cake. Okay, so it was store-bought, but he added sprinkles. Red for festive violence. He burst into their headquarters, a whirlwind of red and black ready to impress. But the reception was chilly. Turns out, his reputation preceded him. The Avengers had heard tales of the merc with a mouth, and they weren't exactly keen on adding unstable and unpredictable to their team dynamic. Rejection stung, even for someone as thick-skinned as Wade. But, hey, at least he got to keep the cake. More sprinkles for him. He'd find another way to save his timeline. There was always another way. Life after Deadpool, Wade puts his past behind him, but his demons linger. 6 years. 6 long years since his grand entrance and even grander rejection from the Avengers. 6 years since he'd hung up the katanas and traded in his red suit for a slightly less conspicuous Hawaiian shirt. He was Wade Wilson now, used car salesman extraordinaire. Or at least that was the plan. He had Peter, his flatmate and confidant, to thank for that. The ever-so-sensible Peter, who somehow managed to tolerate his brand of crazy. And Vanessa, the love of his life. The woman who saw past the mask and into the messed-up soul beneath. But even in the relative normalcy of his new life, the past had a way of catching up. The memories lingered, shadows lurking just beneath the surface. The faces of those he'd lost, the horrors he'd witnessed, the burden of a crumbling timeline. It was always there, a dull ache in his soul. And then, on his birthday, the day he tried so hard to forget, it all came crashing down. The TVA came knocking, and Wade knew, deep down, that his days of quiet anonymity were over. The game was afoot, and he was being dragged back into the fray, whether he was ready or not. Birthdays. The one day a year Wade really tried, to pretend he was a normal, functioning member of society. He even managed to convince Peter to bake a cake. No sprinkles this time, just vanilla frosting and a single flickering candle. 38 years. 38 years of chaos, carnage, and questionable life choices. Vanessa was late. Not unusual given her line of work, but still, a part of him hoped she'd be there. To share a slice of Peter's surprisingly edible cake, to exchange sarcastic birthday wishes, to remind him that even a broken, messed up soul like his could find a sliver of happiness in the world. Then came the knock. Not the gentle rap of a loved one, but a sharp, insistent tattoo that spoke of authority and power. The kind of knock that sent shivers down your spine and made you wish you'd remembered to pay your parking tickets. The time variance authority. He should have known. You can't outrun your past, no matter how many dimensions you hop across. And Wade's past had a nasty habit of showing up at the most inconvenient times. The TVA headquarters were sterile, a cold, clinical space that reeked of bureaucracy and stale coffee. Not exactly Wade's idea of a rocking birthday party. He'd been apprehended, processed, and deposited in a stark white room with all the grace of a malfunctioning teleporter. And then there he was, Mr. Paradox, dapper, smug, and radiating an aura of power that made Wade's spidey senses, not that he had those, but you get the idea, scream for caution.
Your existence, Mr. Wilson, is causing ripples in the fabric of the multiverse, a cosmic glitch in the grand scheme of things. My solution, simple. Erase your timeline, a clean slate, problem solved.
Except Wade didn't do simple. He did chaotic, unpredictable, and occasionally downright insane. Erased timelines didn't sit well with him. He had a knack for surviving, for cheating fate. And he wasn't about to let some cosmic pencil pusher decide his fate or the fate of his reality. Paradox droned on, a symphony of technobabble and existential dread. Wade, meanwhile, had his eye on the prize, or rather, the device that represented his only hope, the TemPad, a sleek, silver gizmo that held the keys to the multiverse, and more importantly, the key to saving his own sorry hide. Distracting a self-absorbed bureaucrat with a god complex, child's play for the merc with a mouth, one well-placed chimichanga joke, don't judge, it worked on Thanos, and Paradox was too busy monologuing about his own brilliance to notice Wade's sleight of hand. The escape was messy. Lots of running, yelling, and strategically placed explosions. The guy's gotta have his fun, right? But he made it. TemPad in hand, a wild plan forming in his chaotic mind. If his timeline was falling apart because of a missing element, a cosmic anchor, then he'd just have to find it. Or rather, him, Logan, the Wolverine. The gruff, grumpy, adamantium-clawed X-Man who, for reasons Wade couldn't quite fathom, was the key to saving his reality. Section 4, The Worst Wolverine. Wade's search leads him to an unlikely savior. The multiverse, a vast, sprawling tapestry of infinite possibilities, and Wade, armed with a stolen TemPad and a head full of bad ideas, was about to turn it upside down. He hopped from one reality to another, each more bizarre and terrifying than the last. He saw worlds ruled by talking ducks, planets populated by sentient chimichangas, his dream come true, and even a universe where everyone communicated entirely in interpretive dance. He encountered countless Logans, some heroic, some tragic, some so utterly bizarre they defied description. There was Cowboy Logan, Samurai Logan, even a Logan who ran a successful chain of vegan restaurants. The irony! But none of them were the right fit, the missing piece in Wade's reality puzzle. Just when his hopes began to dwindle, he stumbled upon him, or rather a very grumpy, very hungover version of him. This Logan was different, darker, more jaded, a shadow of the hero Wade remembered from his own timeline. This was not the Wolverine of legend. This, according to the Multiverse's very own Yelp review, was the worst Wolverine in the multiverse. And yet something told Wade this was the one. Section 1. Back to the Authority. Wade returns to the TVA with the worst Wolverine in tow. The TVA headquarters seemed even more sterile the second time around. Maybe it was the fluorescent lighting, or the distinct lack of background music, or maybe it was the grumpy, adamantium-clawed mutant scowling beside him.
You sure about this, Wade? Because this whole save your timeline with the worst version of me plan? Not exactly inspiring confidence.
Wade chirped, flashing Logan a thumbs up. Wade Wilson, Deadpool. Relax, Grumpy. It's all part of my master plan. Besides, who doesn't love a good redemption arc? They reached Paradox's office, the air thick with tension. Wade could practically taste the cosmic bureaucracy in the air. He shoved open the door with his usual lack of grace, Logan trailing behind him like a bad-tempered shadow. Wade Wilson, Deadpool, Paradox baby, daddy's home. Logan rolled his eyes, muttering something about idiots and inevitable doom. Section 2. Revelations and Pruning. Paradox's true motives are revealed, leading to a drastic turn of events. Mr. Paradox, ever the picture of bureaucratic arrogance, looked distinctly unimpressed.
You again? I must admit I'm disappointed. I expected more from a nuisance of your caliber. Wade Wilson and Deadpool, oh, you flatter me. But enough about my dazzling personality. Feast your eyes on this.
He gestured towards Logan with a flourish. Wade Wilson, Deadpool, the solution to all your timeline woes. Paradox's gaze fell on Logan. A flicker of something akin to fear crossed his face, quickly masked by a sneer.
That's the best you could do? A washed-up, jaded shadow of his former self?
And that's when things went sideways. Turns out, Paradox wasn't just a cosmic pencil pusher. He was a rogue agent, operating outside the TVA's authority. His plan to erase Wade's timeline? A power grab, a way to consolidate his own control over the multiverse.
You see, Wade, some timelines are simply expendable, necessary sacrifices for the greater good.
Before Wade could retort with his usual brand of sarcastic wit, Paradox acted. A flick of his wrist and a wave of energy washed over them. Pruning, exile to the void, the end of the line. Welcome to the void. Wade and Logan find themselves in a desolate, unforgiving realm. The void. It was every bit as charming as the name suggested. A desolate wasteland stretching as far as the eye could see. The sky, if you could call it that, was a swirling vortex of colors that made Wade's head spin. The air was thick with a silence so profound it felt like a physical weight.
Well, this sucks,
Wade muttered, his usual cheerfulness noticeably absent. He looked around, taking in the bleak landscape.
You got any bright ideas, Logan? Besides the obvious we're screwed observation.
Logan, ever the stoic, simply grunted. He unsheathed his claws, the adamantium glinting ominously in the strange light.
If that bureaucratic bastard thinks he can trap me here, he's got another thing coming.
They were stranded, lost in a realm beyond time and space. The TVA, Paradox, their crumbling timelines. It all felt a million miles away. All that mattered now was survival, and finding a way out of this cosmic dumpster fire. But even in the face of oblivion, Wade couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement. This was uncharted territory, a whole new world of possibilities. Sure, it was a terrifying, soul-crushing world filled with unimaginable dangers. But hey, at least it wasn't boring. Amidst the chaos, a familiar face offers a chance for survival. The void was a symphony of silence, a vast empty canvas where even the echoes of their thoughts seemed to vanish into nothingness. Wade, never one for quiet contemplation, was starting to lose his mind.
You ever think about investing in a portable music player, Logan? I'm thinking something with a good beat. Maybe a few polka classics.
Logan shot him a look that could curdle milk.
Focus, Wade, we need a plan.
Just when Wade was about to launch into a spirited defense of the merits of polka music in a crisis, a figure materialized out of thin air. He stood there, a beacon of familiarity in the swirling chaos. Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. And he looked just as surprised to see them as they were to see him.
Whoa. Didn't expect to see friendly faces down here. Especially yours, Logan. Thought you hated everything and everyone.
Logan just grunted, but Wade could see a flicker of relief in his eyes. They weren't alone. There was hope, however faint, of escaping this desolate realm, and maybe, just maybe, setting things right.
Johnny, my man, you have no idea how glad I am to see you. And by glad, I mean ecstatically relieved that we might actually survive this cosmic crapshoot.
The reunion was short-lived. Before any of them could exchange pleasantries or trade war stories, a wave of psychic energy slammed into them, a force so potent it sent shivers down Wade's healing factor. They were thrown into darkness, a suffocating prison crafted from pure psychic energy. When Wade's vision cleared, he found himself shackled, his healing factor struggling to keep up with the psychic strain. Johnny, his flames dimmed, hung limply beside him, and Logan, his claws extended, snarled at their captor, a woman with an unsettling smile and eyes that burned with cold fire.
Cassandra Nova, I should have known.
Wade, ever the comedian, even in dire straits, piped up.
Well, this is just peachy, a family reunion. Should we order pizza? I'm starving.
His attempt at humor fell flat. Cassandra Nova, her gaze fixed on Logan, ignored him completely.
You know of my power. You felt its sting.
She gestured towards Johnny.
He, however, is of no use to me.
Section 2. Escape from Oblivion. The trio makes a daring escape from Cassandra's clutches, but danger still lurks in the void.
Johnny screamed as Cassandra's psychic energy engulfed him, his flame sputtering before being extinguished entirely.
Wade, a knot of dread twisting his insides, watched helplessly as the life drained from Johnny's eyes. This wasn't a fight, it was an execution.
You're next, Logan, Cassandra hissed, her eyes alight with cruel amusement. But first, I have a special treat for you, a front row seat to the end of everything.
The ground beneath them rumbled and a grotesque, monstrous shape emerged from the swirling chaos of the void. Alieth, the devourer of timelines, its form shifting and changing, a nightmarish kaleidoscope of fangs and claws.
Enjoy the show, Cassandra purred, shoving Logan towards the waiting maw of the beast.
Wade, his healing factor pushed to its limit, watched in horror as Logan, claws bared, prepared for a fight he couldn't win. He had to do something, anything.
Thinking fast, Wade shifted his focus, channeling his frustration, his fear, his sheer, unadulterated rage. He screamed, a primal sound that echoed through the void, shattering Cassandra's concentration for a fleeting moment. It was all the opening he needed.
Section 3, The Others. Wade encounters a group of rogue heroes resisting Cassandra, including Elektra Natchios, Eric Brooks, and Remy LeBeau.
The escape was a blur of chaos and adrenaline. One minute they were staring into the abyss. The next they were hurtling through the void, the remnants of Cassandra's psychic prison shattering around them.
Wade, battered but alive, clung to Logan, his healing factor working overtime to mend broken bones and cauterize wounds. They crash-landed in a heap, the impact knocking the breath out of Wade. He lay there for a moment, catching his breath, the taste of ozone and fear lingering on his tongue.
When he finally sat up, groaning, he found himself staring into a pair of cool, appraising eyes.
Nice of you to drop in. A woman's voice, smooth as silk, cut through the silence. She stood before them, clad in black, her hand resting on the hilt of a wickedly curved sai. Elektra Natchios.
Beside her stood two figures, equally intimidating. Eric Brooks, the daywalker known as Blade, and Remy LeBeau, the Reagan Cajun himself, Gambit.
Well, this is awkward, Wade chirped. Ever the charmer, even when facing down three of the most dangerous individuals in any reality. You folks wouldn't happen to be fans of impromptu multiverse hopping, would you? Asking for a friend.
His attempt at humor was met with stony silence. Section 4, Alliance Forged. Despite Logan's initial reluctance, they joined forces with the Resistance to confront Cassandra and escape the void.
Cassandra Nova, Logan growled, his voice low and dangerous. You're hunting her. It wasn't a question, it was a statement.
Elektra nodded, her gaze never leaving Logan. She's a plague, a cancer on this reality and countless others. She seeks to unravel the very fabric of existence, to remake it in her image.
And you're the welcoming committee, Wade quipped, gesturing at their surroundings. I gotta say, your interior design choices leave a lot to be desired.
Blade, his expression as sharp as his blade, stepped forward. We're survivors, Wilson. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. And right now, that means stopping Cassandra.
Logan, ever the loner, hesitated.
This isn't my fight, he growled, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his claws. My concern is for my reality, for my world.
And what happens when there are no more realities left to protect? Elektra challenged, her voice like steel. When Cassandra's reign of terror consumes everything. Your fight, Logan, is our fight. We stand together or we fall alone.
Logan, his jaw clenched, met her gaze. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken words and shared purpose. Finally, he nodded, a grudging acceptance of the situation.
Fine, he growled. Let's end this.
The unlikely alliance launches a daring assault on Cassandra's stronghold. The air crackled with nervous energy as Wade, Logan, and the others, Elektra, Blade, and Gambit, prepared to storm Cassandra Nova's psychic fortress. The void swirled around them, a maelstrom of broken timelines and shattered dreams. But within their makeshift war room, carved from the wreckage of a long-forgotten world, there was a sense of determination, a shared purpose that transcended their differences.
All right, team. Time to show Miss Psychic Psycho what happens when you mess with the multiverse's most dysfunctional family reunion.
Logan, ever the pragmatist, grunted.
Less talking, more fighting, Wilson.
His claws gleamed under the eerie light of the void, a promise of violence to come. Elektra, her movements fluid and graceful, unsheathed her sai, their points gleaming like venomous fangs.
We strike swiftly, decisively. Cassandra's power feeds on chaos. We must become a single focused blade.
Blade, ever the silent warrior, checked the silver-edged blade strapped to his back, his gaze cold and calculating. He lived for this kind of fight, a dance on the edge of oblivion against an enemy that threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality. Gambit, a mischievous grin spreading across his face, shuffled a deck of kinetically charged cards, the air around him crackling with energy.
Let's give them a show they won't forget, Cher.
A desperate gamble offers a glimmer of hope, but at a terrible cost. The battle raged. The void itself seemed to tremble as Cassandra Nova, a whirlwind of psychic energy, clashed with the combined might of Wade and his unlikely allies. Logan, a whirlwind of claws and fury, tore through Cassandra's psychic constructs, his rage a tangible force. Elektra, a phantom in black, danced around Cassandra's attacks, her strikes precise and deadly. Blade, a relentless predator, pressed his attack, his blades a blur of silver against Cassandra's defenses. And Gambit, a master of chaos, turned Cassandra's own power against her, his charged cards detonating with explosive force. But Cassandra was powerful, her psychic might fueled by the chaos of the void itself. For every blow they landed, she seemed to grow stronger, her rage mirroring their own. Wade, his healing factor pushed to its limit, knew they couldn't win in a straight fight. They needed an edge, something to disrupt Cassandra's connection to the void. And then he remembered, the Juggernaut, Cain Marco, a being whose power rivaled even that of Professor X. Wade had once encountered a version of the Juggernaut trapped in the void, his helmet the key to containing his unimaginable power.
Logan, distractor. I need a clear shot.
He didn't wait for a response, instead charging headlong into the chaos, the Juggernaut's helmet clutched tightly in his hand. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was their only hope.
The battle raged around them, a maelstrom of psychic energy and clashing steel. Logan, his feral senses attuned to the ebb and flow of combat, saw Wade's desperate gambit. He lunged forward, a whirlwind of claws and fury, drawing Cassandra's attention.
She turned to face this new threat, her eyes blazing with cold fire.
You cannot defeat me, Logan. I am the culmination of every nightmare, every fear that ever haunted Charles's mind. I am the end of everything.
But even as she spoke, a flicker of doubt crossed her features. Wade, battered but undeterred, was closing in, the Juggernaut's helmet held aloft like some grotesque trophy. She sensed the danger, the raw, untamed power radiating from the metal monstrosity. And then in a heartbeat, everything changed. A wave of fire as hot and bright as the sun erupted from behind Cassandra, engulfing her in a blinding inferno. She screamed, a sound filled with pain and betrayal, as the flames consumed her. When the smoke cleared, a lone figure stood triumphant over her fallen form. Pyro. The fire-wielding mutant, once a loyal follower of Magneto, now stood as Cassandra's executioner. His eyes, usually alight with manic glee, were cold, calculating.
You betrayed us. You promised us power, a place by your side as you remade the multiverse in your image, but you lied.
Cassandra Nova, her body wreathed in flames, laughed. It was a chilling sound, devoid of humor, filled with a cold, calculating malice that sent shivers down Wade's spine. Even in defeat, she radiated power, a palpable aura of menace that seemed to warp the very fabric of the void around them.
Fools, you think you've won? You play right into my hand.
She coughed, a spray of blood and fire erupting from her lips.
Pyro, you pathetic insect. You think you can control me? I am Cassandra Nova. I am beyond your petty comprehension.
She gestured weakly, her hand engulfed in flames towards a towering structure that seemed to materialize from the swirling chaos of the void. It was a machine unlike anything Wade had ever seen, a monstrous contraption of metal and energy that pulsed with an ominous, otherworldly hum.
Behold, the Time Ripper. With this, I will not merely conquer the multiverse, I will unmake it. I will reduce it to its basest elements, a formless void from which I will reshape it in my image.
Wade stared at the machine, a cold dread settling in his stomach. He'd faced down countless threats in his lifetime, fought battles across time and space, stared death in the face more times than he could count. But this was different. This was the end of everything. The air crackled with energy, the remnants of Cassandra Nova's power lingering like the ghost of a dying star. The Time Ripper, a monument to her madness, pulsed ominously, its gears grinding against the very fabric of reality. Wade, his usually flippant demeanor replaced by a grim determination, stared at the machine, his mind racing.
There has to be a way to stop it.
He muttered, his voice tight with tension. He looked at Logan, his companion in chaos, his ally in this mad multiversal adventure. Logan, his face etched with exhaustion and a weariness that seemed to go beyond physical fatigue, simply shook his head.
Even with our combined healing factors, it's not enough. The energy surge, it'll tear us apart.
He placed a hand on Wade's shoulder, his grip firm, a silent farewell passing between them.
It ends here, Wade. At least we go out fighting.
But Wade, the merc with a mouth, the self-proclaimed champion of chimichangas and inappropriate humor, couldn't accept defeat. Not now, not when the fate of countless realities hung in the balance. He looked at the Time Ripper, its gears a symphony of impending doom, and an idea, crazy, reckless, but potentially their only hope, sparked in his mind.
Logan, I have a plan.
Silence descended upon the void, broken only by the gentle hum of the Time Variance Authority's temporal stabilizers. Gone was the Time Ripper, its threat neutralized, its creator scattered across the winds of time. In its place stood Wade, his body whole, his spirit lighter than it had been in years. He had survived against all odds, but victory had come at a cost. He looked at the shimmering portal that had opened before him, a gateway back to his own timeline, to a life he had thought lost forever. He could return, pick up where he left off, pretend that none of this had ever happened. But something held him back, a newfound sense of responsibility, a desire to right the wrongs he had committed. He turned to the others, Elektra, Blade, and Gambit, their faces etched with the weariness of battle. Yet their eyes held a spark of hope, a glimmer of gratitude for the second chance he had given them.
Go, find your own way, fix what you can. The multiverse is a big place, don't let it grind you down.
He watched as they stepped into the portal, their forms shimmering before vanishing into the temporal stream. He was alone, but he didn't feel lonely. He had lost so much, but he had also gained something precious: redemption. He had faced his demons, confronted his past, and emerged battered but not broken on the other side. It was time to go home.